So, now let us continue with a little bit on the mindfulness before we go into the right concentration. And even we have to, right now, we have to keep in mind that I've not finished with mindfulness yet, although I'm going to go over into concentration. For the reason is that because in actual practice itself, the mindfulness, concentration, and other factors all come together and they work together. So therefore, when we want to talk into a little bit more other subjects, we need also understanding of the right concentration and also mindfulness. Now, last week I spoken about that the proximate cause that brings about mindfulness, and that is important for yogis. So last week's talk on this mindfulness, on this arousing of that mindfulness, that one is more of a practical talks. That means that when you meditate, you can actually use it. Whereas tonight's talk is more a later part on the concentration, then it needs a bit technical a little bit, more of a understanding, a general understanding. But before we touch that, something I haven't finished on that, what do you call, the proximate cause for the mindfulness to arise. So I'm going back to that screen. Hey, not this one. Wait, hold on. Let me go back to that particular one. Yes, the prominency of the object. Okay, yes. All right. Can you all see again the can I not? Okay, all right, good. View. Focus. Okay. Now, last week I talked about this, that the prominency of the object, it is important especially when you are doing this pure vipassana. That means you're not connected with any samatha practices, only for those who are doing pure vipassana practice. Therefore, it is important that we know how to choose the objects. Now, if the objects, you do not know how to choose the object, therefore mindfulness does not come in. So in order for the mindfulness to come in, therefore you need to have a clear object that is, in the sense that in front of you. So the first one is that an object is clear, not faded. So if it's, for example, if the object is not clear to you, then you have to change to another object which is clearer to you. For example, if the in-breath, out-breath is not clear to you, you have to change to, for example, like sitting and touching, or change to another object which is clearer than that anapana, which is already not clear already. The second one is the object, although it's clear, but another object is even more clearer. Then, for example, your rising, falling. Then, if the pain in the background becomes clearer, more painful, therefore you have to switch to that object. We have to get this, especially this two partner, first one and the second one. At least we have a right understanding about when you cultivate the vipassana. Because if you don't have these first two, sometimes yogi get attached to only one object, even though when doing vipassana, and other objects they keep on ignore it because they think that those objects are not important. Only the main or primary objects are important. Now, if you have that understanding, that means that your mindfulness is going to be very narrow. Your development is going to be very narrow. Your understanding of vipassana also is going to be very narrow in the long term to come. Now the third one is usually for meditators who has a little bit more advanced, and they can able to see object changes from one object to another. Sometimes the object it's from one to another within maybe few seconds already it changes. Now there is a part that I have not mentioned last week, that is what we call the choiceless mindfulness or choiceless awareness. A choiceless mindfulness and choiceless awareness. This is choiceless mindfulness here is connected to number 3. It's connected to number 3. And this is not a very useful tool for beginner practitioner, beginner yogi. A choiceless mindfulness, this is better suited for more advanced yogi. Now here, choiceless awareness or choiceless mindfulness, sometimes some vipassana teachers also have misunderstanding about what this choiceless mindfulness is. They thought that this choiceless mindfulness is not strong and is not good. It is better to have a directed mindfulness, like what we are doing, especially when you are directed to a in-breath, out-breath as your primary object, or rising, falling as your primary object. So these are directed mindfulness. But choiceless mindfulness here is when your objects, the prominency of the object becomes almost equally, they are the same. And equally, they are equally the same, and sometimes it looks that everything is just same prominency, same clarity. And that time, the state that the noting mind, it knows how to jump from one object to another object. And that time when it jumps from one object to another object, the mindfulness does not lose its momentum, the concentration does not lose its momentum. In fact, that actually it gains momentum and it sees things even more deeper. So this choiceless awareness, it comes in to the yogi when it's automatically. Therefore, you have to let the noting mind do its own noting, not that how you want it during that time, not which object you want, or this object you want, or that object you want. You should let go of your beginner's practice. Beginner's practice, because you got nothing much after all, rising, falling, in breath, out breath also, you cannot see very clearly. All other objects are not clear to you. Therefore, you need that directed object in the beginning part. But in the more advanced part, then the choiceless awareness becomes important because of its prominency of the object. They are very, they are prominent at the same time. So this choiceless awareness is important. So don't underestimate this choiceless awareness or choiceless mindfulness. As I said, a lot of times teachers get it wrong about what it means by this part of the mindfulness. So just to remind you again, don't do this choiceless awareness when you are a beginner practitioner. You do this, your mindfulness will drop very fast because you are not skillful in handling the mindfulness and also the object of your meditation. So therefore, it is important that you don't do this choiceless mindfulness in the beginning part. You do it in the later part when you are much more advanced. It will come on its own. You cannot run away from it. All meditators, finally, it also will come with this choiceless awareness. When you go into higher and higher development, You just let the noting mind do on its own. It knows what to do. It knows how to note. It knows how to progress, make the progress further and better and deeper. Yeah? So this one thing that I want to share, I want to add into the last week's topic also. The second part of this prominency of an object also last week also, which I do not have the time to talk about it, is another one. Now, I want to talk about this one, the highlighted one. Let's talk about number 4. Just go through a little bit on number 4. As I said, that there are objects, although it's mentioned in the text, but you should not look at it if they are not clear to you. For example, like this Rupa Kalapa. The Rupa Kalapas here, as I mentioned, that they are basic Rupa Kalapa. Most of the time, you'll see the first, second, third, fourth, 1, 2, 3, 4. The 5, 6, 7, 8, and others, it doesn't come in that often. So if it doesn't come up, don't go and look for it. Although in the suttas, in the Abhidhamma, it did mention. So you see what is in front, what is clear to you. Don't go and look for what is not clear to you. So too, like sometimes you scan every part of the body. You purposely scan every part of the body for a long period of time. If it's for a short period of time, it's not a problem. It's just like 5 minutes, something like that. Then it's not a problem. But it's a long period of time, you try to scan every little single cell or single inch in the body. You try to go one after another, one after another. That also is not very good. Although some teachers says that every part of the body, every noting, every materiality also comes together with feelings. It's true. The Buddha says it also comes with feelings. But the thing is that the feelings here, the Vedana here, or the sensation here, they are not prominent. Most of the time, they are neither pleasant nor unpleasant feelings. They are neutral feelings most of the time. Then you try to go and look for that feelings which is not prominent, and you try to look for it. Therefore, your mindfulness will not come, because as again, mindfulness comes if the object is prominent to you. Then again, if you have these mental factors, that if you are a beginner, you want to go into looking at mental factors and hold on to them and watch them and so on, then also that is not advisable. Although mind is part of the 4 satipatthana, but in the beginning part for the yogis, these are not a suitable object to you. If you ask a yogi, beginner yogi, if you're thinking so much, okay, use that thinking mind as your meditation object. That is impossible. Then if a beginner yogi, if you ask the beginner yogi, right now you have greed, go and note the greed, note the greed. Then how long can you note the greed before the greed suck you into it and it become even more greed rather than more mindfulness? So in the beginning part, we don't play with we try not to do with the mental factors too much. As I said, generally the rule of the thumb when you are meditating, especially when you're sitting, 80% of your time while you're sitting, you do with a bodily object. 20% or 10% of the time, you do with a mental object. Whereas when you are much more advanced in the development, then things can be vice versa. It can be opposite. That means you can have 90% of your object can be in the mind, 10% only can be in the body. So that one is not a problem, because that time the mind is very clear to you. So number 5 here, comparing the clarity and sustainability of objects between the in-breath, out-breath, and the rising and falling. As I said, nowadays, people actually, those days during the Buddha's time, in-breath, out-breath is easier for them, because morality is higher. When morality is higher, it's easier for them to gain concentration and so on. Nowadays, morality is lower generally for people. Then you need even more clearer object than the in-breath, out-breath. Therefore, actually, rising and falling is a good object for a lot of beginners to start, actually. Rising and falling. But rising and falling also is not easy to see if your mindfulness is not strong. At least when your mindfulness is strong or stronger than before, then rising and falling become clearer. You need even more stronger mindfulness before you can able to follow the in-breath, out-breath for a long period of time. So rising, falling is a more prominent object comparatively to the in-breath, out-breath. A lot of people like the in-breath, out-breath in the beginning because it's calming, it's pleasant, it settles the mind quite fast, which is true in that sense. But in terms of mindfulness, then nowadays, rising, falling is actually a better suitable object for most people. But again, not many people want to believe this. Bodily objects and mental objects. Again here, as I said, bodily objects, generally they are more clearer compared to mental objects. The third one, yes. Now if you choose a bodily object, then you must choose the right bodily object. In the material elements or the bodily elements, there are earth, water, fire, wind. This is only to signify the hardness or softness, like earth, water, for example, like coagulation and dispersion. And then fire is like warm or cold. Wind is like, wind element means like a movements or tension or something like that. So between these elements, between these different characteristics of the body, that when you pay attention to it, again for beginners yogi, it is important that you choose the wind object. Don't go and choose the other three, because the other three is not prominent for you most of the time. The wind object, because it's a moving object. Moving object, it's easier for the mind to hold on to, especially when you are a beginner practitioner. So always choose a wind object. That means something to do with movements. In-breath, out-breath is a movement, which is good. Rising, falling is a movement, which is also good. Lifting, pushing, dropping, well, you are doing walking meditation also is good. Moving of the body is good. Moving of the legs and knees and something is moving. It's a good object for a beginner. And it's easier for mindfulness to arise compared to taking up fire element, earth element, or water element. Very hard for you to note hardness all the time is there. Unless you are sick or unless you have some body physical problem, that is different. For normal people, if you don't have all this sickness and so on, you don't, your earth, fire, maybe it's not so clear to you most of the time. Once in a while they pop up, yes, but they are not sustainable. Wind element is sustainable. It means as long as you are breathing, there's always that movement of the abdomen or the in-breath, out-breath is there. As long as you're able to walk, those movement is always there. So it's always better for a beginner yogi, we choose the wind element. We choose something that is moving. It's easier for the mind to lock onto. Even for sometimes when you are sleepy, when your mind is, when you meditate halfway, sometimes your mindfulness drop. Then again, we go back to the wind element. Sometimes you may, earlier part, you may noting the mind, and then you can see the mind changes and so on, Then you can see a lot of insight. But somehow or another, as you go forward a little bit in time, and then the mindfulness starts to drop and then not so clear. At that time again, you're back to the wind element to re-arouse the mindfulness, to sustain the mindfulness, and after that, everything will be clear to you. So it's good that we must know between these elements, we must know which element to choose. So as I said, this talk is more important for when we coming into the practice. When you coming to a practice, these talks are important. And usually I will sort of like during the retreat, this one is being reminded to the yogis again and again. Although may not be in this format, and sometimes in other format, in other ways. Okay, so now I want to go into right concentration. All the past two talks we talk about the mindfulness is only about arousing that mindfulness. Then the earlier part I mentioned also is the sustaining of mindfulness also as equally as important. So sustaining of mindfulness, you need right concentration to come in. You need the wisdom factor to come in order for that mindfulness to be able to be able to sustain longer. If the mindfulness does not come in with this, especially with the wisdom factor, then mindfulness is a bit wobbly. It can come in, but it cannot last. So most of our case will be like that. That one we'll talk about it when the time comes. So tonight we'll talk about that. We'll look into concentration. And tonight, as I said, this one will be a bit more technical, not so much on the practice. Okay, let's see. Ready? No. Again, I need to go and look for that file. The file is there, but it doesn't come up in the sharing. Okay. Okay, let me see whether it come on. Oops, wrong app. Okay, let's see. Okay. All right. Can you all see right concentration here? Okay. All right. Now, this right concentration again, I gave you all the PDF file for you all to download sometime about 2 or 3 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. Now this I extracted it out from there. I extracted it from just for the right concentration, and I put it 1, 2, 3, 4 because of the first jhana, second jhana, third jhana, fourth jhana. Okay, let's go in first to look into this. And what bhikkhus is right concentration? 1. Here, bhikkhus secluded from sensual pleasures, secluded from unwholesome states. A bhikkhu enters and dwells in the first jhana, which accompanied by thought and examination, with rapture and happiness born of seclusion. Number 2. With the subsiding of thought and examination, he enters and dwells in the second jhana, which has internal confidence and unification of mind, and is without thought and examination, and has rapture and happiness born of concentration. Number 3, with the fading away as well of rapture, he dwells equanimous and mindful and clearly comprehending. He experiences happiness with the body. He enters and dwells in the third jhana, of which the noble ones declare he is equanimous, mindful, and one who dwells happily. Number 4, with the abandoning of pleasure and pain, and the previous passing away of joy and displeasure, he enters and dwells in the fourth jhana, which is neither painful nor pleasant, and includes the purification of mindfulness by equanimity. This is called right concentration. All right. Usually that's what we know about the jhana here. Now, before we go on into understanding what jhana is, we have to define the word jhana. Now the word jhana does not only mean that absorption level, The word jhana here, if you translate it into English, it means to meditate. To meditate, jhana. Sometimes the word jhana is connected with that absorption. Sometimes the Buddha used the Pali word, they use it as just to meditate, does not include any form of absorption. So this is one thing that we have to be clear, because not every time the word jhana is connected with absorption. The quality of the first, second, third, and fourth jhana here. Now here, 1, 2, 3, 4 here is the sutta method. In the Abhidhamma method, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the first jhana is the same as the first jhana, but in the Abhidhamma, well, the thought and examination, vitaka and vichara, again, is separate into two. Then altogether you have 5 jhanas. So suttas, we talk about 4 jhana. Abhidhamma, we talk about 5 jhanas. Sutta in the 4th jhana, because it corresponds to 4 resultant, especially in the Samata jhana, it corresponds to the 4 types of realms of existence in the Brahma realm, in the Brahma realm, corresponding to the 4 types of jhana here. Whereas the Abhidhamma, the 3rd and the 2nd and the 3rd jhana is combined as one realm of existence in that sense. Not one realm, a Brahma existence, one of the Brahma existence there. So we're not going to go into those things. Don't worry about it. So we're going to just, for now, we just go on the 1st jhana, 2nd jhana, 3rd jhana, 4th jhana. Together with this will do. Okay? Now, to understand this jhana and so on, then let's look into what is concentration first. What is concentration in the general? Don't worry about whether it's right or wrong. Concentration. Now, sometimes in the text, we use the word samadhi. It's like samma samadhi, right concentration. Then sometimes you translate it as calmness, or sometimes people translate it as tranquility also. Now, ekaggata also, the Buddha also used it. Now, ekaggata means one-pointedness. Eka means one. Agata or one-pointedness in that sense. Sometimes the Buddha also used the word avikepa, non-distraction. Now, this concentration, this concentration here, they can be wholesome or unwholesome. In fact, that Abhidhamma posits that this concentration arises every moment, even at the most, even when you are sleeping. Put it this way. But it's the most rudimentary level of concentration. So the Abhidhamma posits in that sense. So all the time the concentration is there. So this concentration can be a wholesome concentration and unwholesome concentration. Unwholesome means that when it's connected to like greed, hatred, or delusion, then it becomes unwholesome concentration, wrong concentration, as opposed to right concentration or right samadhi or samma samadhi. Right concentration here is connected to something, again, to the wholesome mental states. For example, mindfulness. Mindfulness is always a wholesome mental state. If it connected to wisdom, wisdom is also a wholesome mental state. So when it connected to those things, then it's a wholesome consciousness. It's a wholesome concentration. So sometimes we use it one-pointedness or non-distraction. Now the characteristic of this concentration as a whole, whether it's wrong or right, it is non-distraction, non-wandering. As I said, when a sniper wants to kill somebody, the mind also is very focused into it. That target, shoot that bullet, one bullet, and then there'll be the killing at the other end. So too that you want to kill a cockroach and so on, your mind is focused on that cockroach, focus on that mosquito, and then you smack into it. Also, it's non-wandering, non-distraction. If somebody were to call you, while you want to do it, somebody to disturb you, then your mind is like gone. You cannot able to shoot the person, or you cannot able to smack that cockroach. So whether it's wholesome or unwholesome, it has non-distraction, non-wandering as its characteristic. Now the function here is to hold together the associate mental states, to unite or hold together the associate mental states. Associate mental states means that at that present moment, for example, you see, the mental states does not come in with just one thing alone. It comes in with the several types of other mental states and to hold them together. Say, for example, when you are noting an object, you are doing vipassana and you are noting your object of your rising, falling, or your in-breath, out-breath. Now, while you are paying attention to that object, that means that time that the right effort is also there. That means the effort also is there. Then the effort is there to make your mind alert, clear, and to make that mindfulness alert. And then therefore when the mindfulness is there, the mindfulness is staying at the present moment, clearly face to face with the object. And then the wisdom factor or the penetrative factor, then it begins to penetrate into the object in order to scrutinize the object, whether the object is moving fast or is slow, or it's changing, or it's getting more, or it's getting less. In that sense, the wisdom is scrutinizing the thing. And then, of course, there are also vitaka, vichara. Just now the thought examination, that one is vitaka and vichara in the Pali translation. So they have number of things while you are noting it. So the nature of this concentration is to hold them together. So that it can able to do its function. When its function is to hold them together so that other mental state can do their function. Right? You can hold them together so that it can able to other mental states can do their function. So the other mental states are not also distracted in a sense, in go into other object and so on. So you hold on to it, other objects can able to do their function. So as you hold on to them, and therefore as the concentration becomes strong, then you find that there's a mind which is peaceful. The mind is calming. The mind is in a way also quiet. That the mind does not go here and there, does not distracted into sound or some other object and so on. It stays with the object of what you are noticing and so on. Even there are tempting type of thought arises, it aware of it, but it doesn't go there, but it just keep on staying there with the object, and it keep on scrutinizing the object. So it holds them together. The problem with this concentration is that when it holds too tightly, When it holds too tightly, that is where the your tension is going to come up. And that means it's not only hold them now, this time it starts to squeeze them. To squeeze them, then that time, especially when the yogi try to over-focus on something, over-focus on the samatha object or over-focus on the vipassana object. He wants to make a lot of effort and then try to squeeze the object when you are noting it. So this time, when you are too strong, then also it becomes a problem. So therefore, when we are meditating, is the balance of the concentration also is as important as arousing the concentration or understanding what is concentration. So as we move on into the practice, as we go into the practice, not only we need that concentration, but we need a balanced concentration. When it's a balanced concentration, that means also there's also a continuity of mindfulness. They all come together. Now, this proximate cause for concentration to arise, this one is accordingly to this one, happiness or bliss or sukha here. It's connected to the deeper jhana and so on. Whereas in the everyday one, it especially in the connected with the noble eightfold path, then mindfulness, in a sense that it is a very direct conditioning. Also, I think so in that sense. Now, while we are doing especially in the vipassana practice, if you are doing in the vipassana practice, you don't have to worry about concentration so much. As long as you have mindfulness, as long as you have sati, then the right concentration, by default, it will come together. By default, it will come together. You don't have to go and purposely go and arouse the concentration. So this is actually important because sometimes, as I said in the past, some talks ago, that yogis sometimes they disregard mindfulness. Then they just want to have concentration. They want to have peace and calm and so on. Then the mind, the objects are not clear. You'll be very peaceful, just like this one, it manifests as very peaceful, but your object is not clear, not clear at all. A blur, and you got to later part you're going to sleep already. But whereas when you are, mindfulness is there, and the concentration is balanced, the object is clear to you, and yet at the same time, you're not distracted. You're not wandering off into all kinds of nonsense. Your mind stays with the object and scrutinize the object. So, in a way, your mind is clear. Your mind is coming together with that mindfulness. So that's why it is most important. We understand mindfulness. Once the mindfulness comes in, right concentration will follow together. So you don't have to worry about concentration that much, especially when you are a beginner practice. But in the later part of the practice, maybe the concentration can be because it can comes in as too much, becomes overwhelming, or sometimes it becomes less. Then at that time we have to understand its characteristic in order to overcome them, in order to rebalance them. Not to overcome, but to rebalance them. To rebalance them so that your noting mind can be clear and able to observe everything once again like before. So as I said, you don't have to worry too much about concentration. All you need to do is make sure you have that mindfulness. So too, the people that doing Samata meditation also. In the beginning of Samata meditation, mindfulness first. When you have mindfulness, the concentration will come, and then your object will become clear to you. If even you have a single object for you, and that object also become clear to you. So here, you don't have to worry. As I said, in the practice, you don't have to worry too much about the concentration, especially if you're a beginner. Now, let us go a little bit more. Let us go a little bit more. This one. We have two different types of jhana. Aramana upanijjhana, object examining jhana. Whereas this is characteristic examining jhana, lakkhana upanijjhana. Aramana here, object examining jhana. Here it means that it's connected to samatha meditation, because the object of samatha meditation, they are obvious to the meditator. Therefore, the clearer the object, the deeper the concentration becomes. Then, as you go into higher jhana again, then it's all connected with the object, the jhana. Now, whereas when you come into vipassana practice, then the jhana here, in the mundane sense, this one is in the mundane sense, then is connected to the characteristic. Here the characteristic means the anicca, dukkha, anatta. It connected with the anicca, dukkha, anatta, and therefore it also has certain degree of, in the sense of jhana also inside there. We're going to look into it further, because for some of us that we thought of jhana is always samatha jhana. Whereas in vipassana, even before you attain enlightenment, there's also certain degree of jhana already you are experiencing it through. But in the practice, in the vipassana practice, we don't talk about this vipassana jhana so much. The reason is that vipassana jhana, it's not as important as the insight. Insight is more important. That means the wisdom part is more important, not the jhana part. Jhana part, yes, you go through it also, but as I said, the insight, the insight, they are more important. After all, it's for the enlightenment, isn't it? Jhana is a supportive in the sense that here it becomes a supportive for the insight for you to see. But whereas in the samatha practice, it is you need that you need that concentration, you need that jhana in order for you to go into deeper. So just clean your understanding a little bit. Just change your understanding a bit, that even in the vipassana, before even you want to enlightenment, then you already have some degree of jhana inside there. And we're going to look into it in a short while. We're going to look into it in a short while. So the next one, we're going to show it to you. This. Now, in the samatha meditation, you have this parikama samadhi. Number 2, you have upachara samadhi. You have appana samadhi. Preliminary concentration, access or neighborhood concentration, and then the third one is absorption concentration. If you have done a bit of samatha, usually the teachers will talk about it. Or if you done some preliminary, access, neighborhood concentration, absorption, or fixed concentration. Now, in vipassana also the same thing. There, you have parikama samadhi. preliminary concentration. Then you have Khanika Samadhi this time, momentary concentration, and you have Appana Samadhi, you have fixed concentration. So how do we define all these things? Where is the, I mean, just for, as I said, just for theory's sake, where is all this being, which one is preliminary, which stage is preliminary, which stage is neighborhood, and so on, you know? So we look a little bit more, a little bit more. Okay, let me see, where's my next slide? All right. In a Samata meditation, okay, when you begin your Samata meditation, let's say, you take the Anapana as your object, as a Samata object, not as a Vipassana object, as a Samata object. Now, when you take up as a Samata object, preliminary concentration means that when you observe your object, and you notice your in-breath, out-breath, then that time, a lot of your sleepiness comes in, mind get distracted, all kinds of nonsense, and all kinds of greed or anger or aversion, everything is coming in, you know, to disturb you, to make your meditation difficult. So when you still have a lot of all these things, that means it's still under preliminary concentration. And again, this preliminary concentration, it all depends on the yogis. Some yogis are short time, some yogis is still after meditating so many years are still there. So it all depends on the yogi, how much they put effort into it. Yeah? So Samatha meditation doesn't mean that straight away you do Samatha meditation, everything quiet, everything nice. Not everybody is like this. Yeah? Now, excess concentration here. Excess concentration here is once beginning from when you suppress your hindrances that means become very little or not there at all up to Gotrabu consciousness. Gotrabu again here is called one consciousness before you go into the jhana consciousness. Maybe that time later on, maybe another day we're going to talk about when you want to enter into jhana also. There's also, you go through a number of consciousness also, like preliminary access, something like that. I forgot the name, but one of it also got trouble, change of lineage also, just like in the vipassana. Just like in the vipassana. So, and then when you have absorption consciousness, that means here you have a jhana consciousness already. That means the mind is firmly fixed into the object. That means you are just totally fixed there, fixed there. That one is absorption concentration. I'm going to describe again what is this absorption concentration, because I'm going to keep it for again another day. If not, this one also is a lot we can talk about. A lot we can go through into it. Now, when it comes to the object and sign, that means how the connection is this one. Whereas preliminary sign or preliminary object, it's connected to the preliminary concentration. That means your sign or object here means in the beginning part is your in-breath, out-breath, let's say. If you're taking the in-breath, out-breath, then a lot of all the hindrances is around you. That means it's still what we call preliminary object or preliminary sign. The Pali word is nimitta. I forgot to this one. Nimitta. Preliminary sign of preliminary concentration. Now, at the excess concentration, there are two types of nimitta. One is the learning sign and one is the counterpart sign. A learning sign, that means When you begin to see the real nimitta of in breath, out breath. Let's say this time you see the 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 sometimes it's like depending on each and every yogi, some yogi will see a mirror image of in breath and out breath, like a physical in breath, out breath, but this time is created by the mind. Created by the mind. If the in breath slow, that if the physical in breath slow, then that mental image also becomes slow. If that physical image is long, that mental image also becomes long. It's just to give you what I mean by learning sign here. So you have this learning sign. Therefore, it is there, but it is not so clear yet. So you have to develop more and more mindfulness and concentration, and also actually also a certain degree of wisdom also involved here. That the learning sign over time, and then it becomes clearer and clearer until one day it becomes so clear. So clear sometimes the text mentioned it as like you're coming out from like a moon, like a full moon coming out from the clouds, then it becomes very clear, very obvious. Sometimes you look at the full moon, like tonight also, I think you have a full moon, or yesterday night. Yesterday night or tonight? I think tonight. If you have a full moon, then sometimes if you have like water vapor, humidity high in the sky, then when you look at the moon is there, but sometimes it's not as clear. But when the water vapor all gone, or even the very thin clouds when they disappear, and then the weather becomes dry especially, then you can see the full moon become so bright. Something like that. Counterpart sign, it becomes so counterpart sign is like the moon becomes absolutely bright. So here the counterpart sign means that the image is as if like you close your eyes, you open your eyes as if like it is there. It is so clear that the hindrances is not disturbing you at all. And some people in the beginning part of it, let me stress, in the later part of it, it may not happen in that sense. In the beginning part of it, it can come in, your mind becomes so soft, so pleasant, so peaceful, very, very soft. And some people say that it can become like a sleepy type, sleepness like type of state of mind. But that is only when you are in the beginning part. When you want the beginner to get this counterpart sign. But in the later part, you can easily, later part means when you are more advanced, you can able to get the counterpart sign very easily. If you train. So both of these sign, when both of these nimitta, when one is not so clear, and the third one is absolutely clear, that one belongs to excess concentration. Whereas in the fixed concentration, you don't have all this object in a sense. Merge into object doesn't mean that you have, we put the word merge into an object. Sometimes hard to say, but there's not really an object there. So do you have this 1, 2, 3 type of object of nimitta? If you take in breath, out breath, you have these 3. If you do metta, then again, you don't have this counterpart sign, but you have learning sign only. It seems to, I think so. Then you also can able to enter into jhana later on also. So there are some vipassana, some samatha meditation. Some samatha meditation, you have learning sign, you have counterpart sign. It's a bit, again here, it's technical. Again here, it's a bit more technical, just for understanding sake. Now we come to vipassana. Now vipassana here, preliminary concentration, it's when you're beginning to meditate until you get your first insight. This is, and here, of course, if you are a beginner here, you haven't touched, then a lot of hindrances, a lot of things are coming in. Momentary concentration is when you have your first insight until got trouble consciousness. That means this is also change of lineage consciousness, which is the 13 insight knowledge. And then absorption concentration is the path and friction consciousness, which is the 14 and 15 insight knowledge. So when you have path and friction, that time is no more that time is no more momentary, because that time you don't see anicca dukkha in that sense. Anatta, yes, but you don't see anicca and dukkha already. Whereas momentary concentration, you see anicca, dukkha, anatta again and again and again and again and again and again and again. So this time is called momentary concentration. Now, a little bit more. Give me just a few more minutes. I just want to go through here. Now, just now I mentioned, I go up again. Now, just now I mentioned this, that there are vipassana jhana and there are also like samatha jhana. Now we are looking at vipassana jhana, characteristic examining jhana. When it comes to the insight, I mean, 3 or 1 month ago, I think, or more than that, we talked about the different insight knowledge when we were talking about the cessation of dukkha, the third noble truth. Now, we're going to go back. I'm going to stop this sharing, and I'm going to go back to that previous one. Can you all see this one? As I said, this one is going to be a bit small. Last time also I told you all that, because I want to make sure that everything can be seen. Hold on, see whether I can make it bigger or not. Okay. Actually, I want to look into this one more towards this practice part. All right. When we talk about the first jhana, second jhana, third jhana, fourth jhana, in the vipassana, it also has connection with the insight, the different knowledge here. Now, in the first jhana, where we have vitaka, vichara, and then piti sukha, ekagata, and so on. The first jhana is somewhere at the third knowledge, the knowledge of comprehension. The knowledge of comprehension. And that time, if while you have around that area, knowledge of comprehension this time, then you'll find that your meditation practice, that your mindfulness is continuous, that when you sit down, you don't have to look for the object. The object is already in front of you. Your rising, falling is very clear to you. Any object becomes clear to you at that moment of time. And that moment of time also, your hindrances is very little, or sometimes it doesn't come in at all. You can sit for 1 hour, and 1 hour you can able to note, you can continuously able to follow your objects. Although this time your object can be painful sensation coming in, rising, falling sensation coming in, tension coming in, pulling coming in, changing here and there coming in. A lot of things are coming in. You see a different types of anicca, preliminary aspect of anicca, dukkha, anatta. And then you see quite a lot of them, but then your mind is not distracted away at all. So that time, it is again, the first jhana is somewhere at the third first jhana of vipassana is somewhere at the third, this one. And I remind you, the word jhana here is not the absorption jhana. This is again a mundane. This is still mundane in that sense. This is not supra mundane yet. Then, when it comes to the second jhana, where your vitaka and vichara is removed, then only we have joy and bliss, happiness, and you have ekagata. Then it's somewhere at the number 4A here. Number 4A, somewhere around here, sometimes 3, sometimes 4, around this part. Because when we look at again, as I said, when you look at all these things, they are not like very clear steps. Everything is just like one linear line. It's not easy for us to break part by part. But in teaching, we do it in this way. But in meditation, it's not. So, as I said, the second jhana is somewhere at the number 4A here. At the 4B here, this is connected with the third jhana already. Connected with the third jhana. Whereas when you see a lot of your happiness, very pleasant happiness, and yet you are not attached to it. You're not attached to it. That day we talk about upakilesa, and then I said that there's a lot of happiness that comes together with it. No, as long as you don't attach to it, it is part of the whole development. And it's part of the whole development because that too is an expression of jhana also, a vipassana jhana. And at that time, of course, I don't want to confuse you, since now we are talking about concentration. Now, I add in one thing. This is connected with our vipassana jhana. It's at the 4B for the third one. So for the fourth jhana, when you don't have any more happiness, bliss, sukha here, then it's only ekagata and concentration and equanimity, upeka. Then it will come you will mature at the number 11. Equanimity towards formation. The word equanimity is there. That time, joy also don't have, sadness also don't have, anything also. Everything is only on equanimity. Strong concentration, deep concentration. The concentration, as I said, is purified. It's really very clear during the equanimity towards formation. And that time also, the yogi also can sit long, meditate long, more like the continuity of that mindfulness is so strong that from the morning until night, the continuity doesn't break. If you are in the state of meditation, it doesn't break. You will just continue on, as if it's called the effortless effort type of mindfulness. You don't have to make effort to the mindfulness. The mindfulness will just perpetually just keep on going on. It will keep going on and on and on and on until you stop your meditation. So the fourth here, then it comes in there. Now this one is mundane, mundane jhana. Whereas the first jhana, second jhana, third jhana of the samatha, that also is also mundane jhana. That also is mundane jhana. Whereas when they talk about Noble Eightfold Path, right in the beginning I mentioned that there are mundane Noble Eightfold Path and there are supramundane Noble Eightfold Path, right? We have said mundane and supramundane. Now when it comes to the supramundane, here is where your right concentration and the path and friction here, when you really have the path and friction, that time is an absorption concentration already. This is no more kanika samadhi. This is absorption concentration. Now, if you have not done any form of samatha meditation before and you can able to enter into 14 and 15 path and friction knowledge, then you will enter it as a first jhana at the supramundane level. First jhana of a supramundane level because you don't have any form of samatha jhana. All right, you don't have any form of samatha jhana. But if you practice your vipassana, let's say you can able to do samatha, and you can able to do first jhana, second jhana, third jhana, fourth jhana, let's say lah. And then let's say you like the third jhana very much. Okay, you use this third jhana and you turn it into a vipassana practice. You come out from the third jhana, you do it into a vipassana practice, and then you gain this insight. And therefore, then after that, you enter into path and friction. Then, when you enter with that, then you enter with a third jhana of a path and friction. All right, because you have previously you have jhana and you use that jhana for the supramundane thing. Okay, can understand? 明白吗? Let me repeat just a little bit more before we go. As I said, if you want to enter Nibbana as a supramundane jhana, as a supramundane concentration, then if let's say you have a third jhana of a samatha meditation, then you use that samatha meditation, you use that jhana, and you with that jhana, you come out from that jhana, and you enter into vipassana objects, and you note that vipassana object, and then you come to the path and friction. So when you enter in the path and friction knowledge, then you enter it as a third jhana of the supramundane level, at the third jhana of vipassana in the sense of path and fruit. That's the supramundane part. So if you do not have any jhana at the background before, and you do vipassana only, then when you enter the path and friction, you enter with the first jhana. You enter with the first jhana. Okay, so this is a bit of as I said tonight, is just a bit of technical understanding of this right concentration. So all right, now it's already 10:10 already. Okay. So we're gonna talk about this right concentration a little bit more. Then later part, other talks, we're going to combine mindfulness and concentration and everything together in order to help us in our practice further. Okay, that's it for tonight. Now we share merits. Okay.